The Silver Samaritan!
Greetings and salutations, my aspiring heroes. I'm the Silver Samaritan, and this is Superhero Survival Skills. Last time we ended on an important question. When is it better to cut and run rather than stay and fight? This question, of course, leads to other, even harder questions. So, let's have a look at a few of those. If you take the proper precautions, it's rare that you'll find yourself cornered by an overpowered adversary, or in some cases, adversaries, and see nowhere to run. But maybe you've completed a cursory evaluation of your options and exhausted all possibilities. Shadows, ducks, windows, backdoors, a Hail Mary base jump, all of it. Both fight and flight seem impossible. Barring a transformation of Super Saiyan Goku proportions, your choices appear narrowed down to two. Go down fighting, or go down not fighting. You won't have time to weigh things properly in that moment, so let's take a minute to do that now. Why are you in this position in the first place? The answer to that question will inform your available options. Are you protecting property, like an office building, a Walmart, or a police station? Did you escalate a situation instead of listening and defusing? Or have you gotten cornered while protecting some other person from an attacker, or several attackers? Part 1. Negotiation. Every situation is negotiable. Your adversary wants something, and 99 times out of 100, it's something other than just to kill you. They're seeing your destruction merely as a means to another end. Unless you've pissed them off on a personal level, in which case I recommend making your peace with God, or whatever it is you do when facing death. But we're just gonna skip over that scenario because you're smart and you don't do that. It is also possible that you are simply confronted with someone who is just horrible. Someone who can't be bargained, bullied, or negotiated with. I have no easy answers for that, and we will come back to it in a bit. But first, let's talk about the enemies you can talk to. As you've probably heard already from your sensei, lao shi, sun sang nim, or teacher, it's better to negotiate and diffuse a situation if you can. Escalation happens when you let your ego or unresolved baggage take control, and it leads to otherwise avoidable violence. I will leave links in the description to some brief articles on conflict resolution. In the meantime, here's a quick summary. 1. Act as if you are in control. Not cocky, just in control of yourself. Showing anxiety may trigger anxiety in your adversary as well, which can heighten their aggression. 2. Stay calm. You may find it challenging to keep things respectful, and I'm guessing it isn't a priority for your adversary, but calm can be contagious, just like anxiety. 3. Be mindful of your body language. Neutral and irregular eye contact, a relaxed face, and open posture all convey subconsciously that you are not an immediate threat, and even have your adversary's best interests at heart. And, don't smile. You want them to know you're serious, and that you take them seriously. 4. Try to find a mutually beneficial solution. You will have to wait for your adversary to calm down for this one, and obviously there will be times when no compromise can be reached. But if you have time, it might be worth it to try. In all cases, you need to have an exit. Sometimes diplomacy fails, and then you find out the hard way that you have not been negotiating from a position of strength. 'Cause these strategies don't always work, which is why you have armor and jujitsu training. See the previous episode. Hopefully you haven't neglected those, and you've kept an unobtrusive eye open for escape routes. If diffusing the situation doesn't work, what happens next depends on your priorities, which, again, it would be wise to delineate ahead of time. How about right now, for instance? Part 2. People and property. So, you are now the only thing standing between a raging, overpowered personification of destruction and whatever or whomever it is trying to destroy. The first question I have is, are you protecting people or property? In the case of property, the answer is really simple. Your life is worth more than anyone's property. This should not even be a question. If you are faced with the choice of dying for the protection of property, just fucking bail. Who cares? Now, if you're defending a person's life, or the lives of several people from an attack, that's a different story. As I've said before, it is your decision to make, and a scenario like this can take any number of forms. However, as you've probably guessed, there may not be any need to rush headlong into dying, especially considering that the person or people you're defending may follow you in short order anyway if you do. I'm not going to lie. I found myself in this situation exactly twice. The first time was when I met, fought, and lost to Crank the Butcher. I woke up in a stranger's apartment, lying on a couch, unmasked, stitched up, and personally indebted. On the upside, I suddenly had a new and discreet ally, one with a valuable knack for keeping stitches small. I got lucky. And, as I found out later, I had distracted Crank long enough for his target to escape. Win-win. The second time, you're probably already familiar with. It was at the peak of the Purgatorial Crisis, when the demi-demon Crucifer and his group, the Fallen, tried to raise a zombie army and march, for some reason, on Salem, Massachusetts. In the fight that broke out, my associate Tankenstein basically jumped between me and a literal fireball. He was probably hurt, but he'd never admit that. You know, for a guy who once swallowed a live grenade and walked away, he can be surprisingly sensitive about being perceived as weak. The larger point I'm trying to make here is the right friend is sometimes the only defense, the thing that will pull you out of the figurative and/or literal fire. I do plan to talk about this more in a future video on relationships, but for now, let's just say you don't need a Deus Ex Machina if you have an Amicus Qui Machina, like I do. Well, an associate Qui Machina. You know, we agree on the important things. Mostly. Part 3. Aftermath. This is more of a mental health thing, and I do want to talk more about it in an upcoming episode. But it's relevant for now to remember the following. Unless you're some kind of asshole, failure hurts. If you cut and run, then shortly after that, you're going to feel pretty bad about it, especially if you failed to prevent someone's injury or death. And if you're like me, you also have a pathological habit of dwelling on your failures more than you remember the times that you did save someone. If you can afford therapy, great. A lot of masked heroes can't access it for whatever reason. And we're generally stuck with ad hoc coping mechanisms like self-talk, isolation, or substance abuse. Of those three, I recommend the first one the most. Basically, I find a quiet place to be alone and listen to how my brain is telling me I'm terrible. I make an itemized list of every shitty thing my brain tells me. Then I go down the list and tell myself, out loud, how each item is based on the false assumption that I owe suffering to anyone. I know that can be hard to believe for some of you, but whatever drove you to become a masked hero, whether or not you owe someone your life or you failed to protect them, you don't owe anyone your death or destruction. Again, this is superhero survival skills, not superhero being depressed and throwing your life away skills. Moving forward is part of the job. As Captain Picard famously said, it is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not weakness. That is life. Once you've refuted your dysfunctional brain's weird insistence that you suck, remember to hydrate, eat something, and try to get some sleep. On that note, I have to go hydrate, eat something, and try to get some sleep. Next episode, we'll get into the protection of your mental health. In the meantime, feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't, and leave questions in the comments. If you are finding value in these episodes, you can of course support my work on Patreon. The link is in the description. Follow me on Twitter if you like wondering whether something I've posted there has vanished into the endless ocean of horrors that dwell therein, or on SoundCloud if you prefer just listening instead of video format. Shout out to Tankenstein, thank you again, and thank you for listening. This is the Silver Samaritan saying good luck and stay safe.